The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward. So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives.
Thousands of meetings, literally.
And at the end of a 45-minute meeting, I've helped sick kids at the Starlights Children's Hospital, which is my chosen charity.
When you're first meeting someone, you're trying to build a connection. And with Meetings for Good, you just find the connections automatically there.
And when I actually think about what Meet Magic does and the opportunity to spend some time supporting the community of our vendors, but also being able to give back.
And when the opportunity presented itself to join Meet Magic, I jumped at it.
But these ones are different, and the reason they're different is because the vendor wants to meet with you and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
All of those meetings blur into one, but Meeting for Good is memorable.
It absolutely makes sense to do this, and I definitely recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic.
Woo! And there we are. Good morning, everyone. It's actually 7 a.m. here in Sydney. For those that don't know, I'm Carl. I'm the founder of Meet Magic, which is a purpose-driven platform that lets decision makers pay it forward by networking with pretty much the world's best technology companies, and they do it to gain insights. So I think in today's world, obviously solving real challenges requires leveraging the right technology. And execs obviously crave purpose and trust these days. They don't, or decision makers sort of do, but they don't really value the pushy sales tactics or the spammy emails. So that's pretty much why we created Meet Magic. I'm the chief meeting officer. So with Meet Magic, decision makers and vendors can find each other, and they can share the latest tech, and they can filter requests creatively, and they can raise money for charity. So it's all about control, it's about relevance, and it's about making a real impact. So for those that don't know, I'm from Nottingham, and that's where Robin Hood comes from, and Sir William Booth, who is the founder of the Salvation Army. So I always tell people that we always know how to help and what to do with other people's money. Everyone knows the Robin Hood story. So welcome to Meet Magic Room. This is a podcast. And this is where we showcase purpose-driven leaders and change makers. So obviously everyone's got a story, and I'm here to share theirs. So in each episode, we sort of dive a little bit into what inspired them growing up, their mentors, their vision for the future, and how they give back now. So today, I'm very happy. I've met with Bernard once before, but Bernard is the Senior Director of IT for the Desjardins Group. I think I pronounced that right, but it's my pleasure to share his incredible journey with you now. And Bernard.
Hello, Carl.
How was that for an introduction?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Bernard Truong. As mentioned, Carl, I'm currently working at the Desjardins Group in Montreal, Canada, which is a financial co-op, probably one of the largest one in Canada, or if not North America. And my team is actually responsible for, I think people would be more familiar with internal audit. We call it monitoring, but we're working with the digital transformation group and technology, obviously. That's pretty much it. So lots of excitement, lots of fun. We're going through major changes in terms of modernization. So that's what I'm doing right now for the past 2.5 years.
Bernard, it's nice to see you again, by the way. I know we had a chat before previously, and I was massively inspired by your journey, but even more so by the size of your company that I've never even heard of. I mean, it's like 50,000 people in the company, right?
Correct. We're a little bit over 50,000 employees, in across different business functions, going from insurance to wealth management, business, consumer banking, and so on. So, it's a typical bank structure, but we're not a bank, we're a financial co-op. So
it's quite incredible. And I know we were talking before about how difficult it is to keep a track of everything. So I've got quite a few execs who are on the Meet Magic platform who, in similar positions, got 10,000 or so staff, but keeping visibility across all the different projects, the status of those projects. I think I mentioned to you that we've got a client called Teamform that sort of does something to bring all that stuff together and give visibility across it. Because I think most people were managing stuff in a spreadsheet, which I guess, it's 2024, time to get rid of the spreadsheet.
actually, thanks to you, Carl, the introduction to Alex, I actually talked to Alex this week. It was a very interesting conversation we had, and we agreed that we're going to pursue with probably a demo in the next couple of weeks. I will introduce Alex to colleagues of mine, because I believe whatever they have in terms of product, there's definitely some potential there, and we're gonna explore.
That's very cool. And we didn't do it. I only did it because the conversation I had with you, I thought, well, if this makes your life 5% better in a company that big, that's a lot of impact.
Yeah, definitely. Again, and I told Alex that we maybe, if it works out, we can start with a pilot, with my team or with a small group within our organization, and grow from there. Because, like that's you awesome. Said, it's a big organization. Probably, we have organizations out there that are way bigger than the one that I'm working for right now. But still, we can start with a small pilot and grow from there, see what we've learned, and then just expand.
Now that connection that I just did that randomly. It wasn't a part of the whole Meet Magic thing. But I'm going to send you a few $100 in a gift card, so you can send that to a charity, Bernard, because that's beautiful. That's exactly what Meet Magic does. It connects people for conversations like this. I'm human, so I get it kind of right 90%, but I think AI can get it 95%, and so we match people based on relevancy and score and stuff. Anyway, enough about works. Work's kind of boring, but I'm more interested in your background and what was your biggest inspiration growing up? Because you're obviously in Canada now. Have you always been in Canada?
No, I was born in Vietnam. I grew up in Paris, and I moved to Montreal for university, and I decided to stay in Montreal because there was so much I've learned over the years when I was in university. And obviously my parents brought me at the time to Canada because they believed that the opportunity for growth and advance in my career was much greater in Canada / US, because the North American culture, you grow and you move up based on your level of competence or your potential, what you can do, versus the European culture, or specifically French culture. It's a bit different. So it's more about who you know, and it's not it doesn't work quite the same as in the US. So anyway, long story short, I had the opportunity to grow up in France, so it gives me different perspective on the Vietnamese culture, the French culture, and then now the North American culture, because it's very different. That's pretty much it. So
it's quite interesting. You've actually got the best of both worlds. You probably don't even know it. I think by osmosis, you would have picked up the best from France in food and wine and cooking and everything. You'd have picked up the best in Vietnamese from the entrepreneurial side of it. I've been to Vietnam probably 9 times. I've done the top to the bottom. It probably is one of my favorite countries on the planet, just from a food, but more from a people perspective, because those little old ladies on the street selling, some banh mi with the meatballs in it or something like that, they know how to cook a chicken and use that chicken 15 different times, even down to the bones, to make a broth, to make some soup. And this is something that, for me, when I meet with Vietnamese people, they've always got this entrepreneurial spirit. And I reckon it comes from that difficult time growing up. And it's the same with me. I had a difficult time growing up. There was no money around. you have to survive. And so you did creative things to do that. And I just, every time I think about Vietnam, and I've had Vietnamese girlfriends too, by the way. In fact, my last Vietnamese girlfriend I was with her for 8 years, and we went backwards and forwards to Vietnam, and it was just probably the most beautiful experience, I think, from a culinary perspective, because of course French influenced, and so you're lucky. You've got the best of both worlds. Your parents did the right thing taking you to France.
I do realize it now, Carl. But growing up, it was a challenge. I mean, obviously, just switching from one country to the next one. When you start getting used to a place and making friends, learning to adapt to the country, and then all of a sudden you have to move to a different country again. But looking back now, I agree with you. I consider myself as a lucky individual who get to experience different cultures, and that's what helped me learn and grow and being able to adapt.
I can tell you, Bernard, honest to God, I was in London a couple of weeks back, and I bumped into her at the hotel with my mum and dad with me, a lady called Shamara, who is the CEO of the Macquarie Bank in Australia. And she is probably one of the I think she is the highest paid female in the country. She's $20-30 million plus salary.
Wow.
And when you sit and talk to her, and we've had a conversation with her about this, the thing that drove her was her parents dragging her to different countries when she was a kid. She got that exposure and everything else. And this was the key thing that she said was the reason why she's so broad in her views. So I think it's probably a good segue into this inspiration of yours growing up. Was it your parents that inspired you, or what was it?
Definitely my dad. I still remember, when I was still in school, and I look at my dad's resume, and people were asking me, and I said, you want to follow your dad's step? And I said, I don't think I can. I mean, I look at his resume and I said, oh my God, how am I going to do all this? It seemed so unachievable in my head, and I still believe that my dad did a lot of stuff, and it's pretty similar because my dad grew up with his mom, because my grandfather passed away very young, so he worked while he was in school, and she sent him to France to study. And when he finished school, he went back to Vietnam, and he developed business. He worked for the government, so he did a lot of stuff, and he traveled a lot, obviously. And being the youngest in the family, my parents always took me with them wherever my dad went for conference or for business stuff like that. So I had the opportunity to travel a lot when I was younger. So yeah, my dad is my biggest inspiration. I mean, I look at what my dad did, and a lot of times I miss my dad, because you realize when you don't have that opportunity anymore. And today, when I get into political situation where I ask myself, what would my dad do? What would dad say if he was still alive? And asking for him for advice and stuff like that. So I think it's him. It's definitely him, and I'm not looking at anybody else. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are doing great jobs, but I'm still looking back, and I think definitely my dad was my biggest inspiration.
It's giving me goose pimples, to be honest, Bernard, because my father's 78 now, still alive in the UK, in Nottingham. And it gets to this time I'm 54, and it gets to this time when you know that they're in their last chapter. And so I worry a lot about being 12,000 miles away from them, because it's a long way to get on. You just don't want to wake up or get that phone call in the middle of the night saying, it's not good, come home. And I don't want to go there. I want to make sure that we spend as much time as possible with them while they're in their last chapter, because I don't think, like you mentioned, for me, you don't realize how much they shaped who you are today. My father was a roof tiler, working in the cold on roofs for himself, and it was a manual labor job. And I remember going to work with him. But I think what happened to me as a kid, being dragged along with him, working hard, carrying tiles up roofs, you're earning £20 for a whole day's worth of slave labor. I think it shaped who I am today. It taught me the value of hard work. It taught me the value of respect and getting up in the morning and doing a hard day's graft. So how did your dad shape who you are today? Because mine was all around never giving up.
One of the things that my dad taught me, Carl, that stayed with me my whole career was, and then not just from a professional level, but from the personal level as well, is he said, one of the things that people could never take away from you is your integrity. He said, no matter what happens, no matter what you do, protect that, and you never get lost in what you do. And looking back again, I agree with him totally, because I got myself exposed to political situation, whether at work or regardless of situation. And I asked myself, and I said, if I do this, is it against my values? Is it, it's going to put me in a situation where I can be questioned about my integrity? And if the answer is yes, I will not allow that situation to happen. So I make choices, like everybody else, some good choices and some bad choices through my career. But one thing I can tell you, I've never made any choices that will allow people to question my integrity. So I think that's what really shaped who I am today. And to your question, why am I doing the meeting with vendors through Meet Magic or in a other platform, is that maybe I'll have the means, like some of the most wealthy people, like Microsoft or Tesla or whoever, that can impact in terms of millions or billions of dollars to help people. I help people differently. I can coach, I can mentor people, and I can do little meetings that, 300, but 300 that I'm going to contribute to a cause that I believed in, and it's going to make a difference. Because if everybody's saying that, 300 is nothing, but 300 is a lot, but you think about how many of us can do that, you can help and grow some of the organization that in turn are helping other people that really need the help. So that's how I function.
Totally, Bernard. And it's just music to my ears, because $300, maybe $300, but I can tell you it saves 18 sick kids in hospital. One of the charities that we're working with here is a charity called Gotcha for Life. They're a mental health support. They're about ending suicide, because there are too many people committing suicide, mainly men and boys, that are committed. There's 6 a day in Australia, believe it or not, 6. This is like a small country, and so $300 will potentially save 6 people from committing suicide by getting them support and help. How is that not a good use of 45 minutes of your time? So I think it's the small things that matter, and my belief with Meet Magic is we can do hundreds of thousands of these little small meetings all around the world. That's a big impact. So it doesn't matter how much it is. I think one of the things that is really prominent to me is that time is our most precious currency, and how we use it is really important. And I think just 45 minutes once a month to do something good is a really small way to give back. And so thank you for sharing that, because that's it's just important. I think one of the biggest challenges we've got is, how do we convince people that meetings can be good? They don't need to be painful. We've launched this digital impact card now, where we're going to send Bernard, for example, a digital card that you can put into a charity and share that with the charity. That's actually really good.
One of the things that I can encourage whoever is listening to the podcast right now, it's not just about helping others, but you can learn a lot from those meetings. Carl, every time I have the opportunity to meet with whoever that Meet Magic or other platform that I was using before that would refer me to vendors, they're the one who are out there talking to a lot of people. They can bring insight, and it can bring, angles that you haven't thought about before. So it allows you to grow and exchange and develop your network. So there's a lot. It's a win-win for everyone. And as you said, 45 minutes is nothing. It's one lunchtime. And if you take the time to do that once a month, you can help a lot of people out there, and that's my way of helping people. I mean,
it's beautiful. We've got execs that go to lunch. in the platform, there's a take me to lunch option, so you can actually go and sit down on your bum and feed your face and actually help the world become a better place. You know, one of the things I did with my daughter, and it really was, I think it was Vietnam that taught me this. One trip we had, you know, you really can make a difference in a small, simple way. It doesn't have to be that difficult. One of the things I did with my daughter, and have you got kids, Bernard?
not yet.
And so when my daughter was, I think she was 12 or 13, she used to get the train to school, and she'd have to get one train from where we lived in Sydney to the central train station, and then the train to school. And it was quite a journey. It's like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes or something. But on that first journey to the centre, there was always lots of homeless people. There's always lots of people looking for help and support and whatever in that train station. So every fortnight, or bi-weekly, I think as Canadians call it, I used to give her $50, and I'd say to my daughter, now this $50 is not for you and your girlies to go and have a chai latte. This is for you to give to somebody and make a difference. And I don't care how it made them feel. I want you to come back and tell me how it made you feel. And so she would go to the local store. She'd buy some sweets for the dog. And then she'd go and sit with the homeless guy who's got the dog. She'd feed the dog. She's a big animal lover. She'd feed the dog and give the rest of the change to the homeless guy. And she'd come back, and it just transformed her day, and it transformed her week, and it's transformed who she is now as a 21-year-old fine female. You know, she's got this thing about giving back and supporting people. It's built into her now. So I think if we can all do something similar, and it's a little bit of time, it can go a long way.
Yep, I agree. I totally agree.
So your dad was obviously a big influence. Can you remember any? I mean, it's a bit of a strange question, this one, but can you remember a memorable story about how it had a massive impact? I remember my dad almost fell off a roof, and he hung upside down, hanging off the roof. He should have been dead. It was a crazy situation, and watching him get back up, but not only get back up, but go to work the next day and do the same thing again. You know, it's like that one thing for me was like this. Wow, this guy's almost died at work, and he's actually gone straight back up the ladder and back onto the roof the next day to do it again. It's like, you wouldn't do that today. You'd have 3 years off as a mental health break.
Well, one of the mentors, I actually had two that really had a great impact on my career. Carl, the first one is probably less, a wow for majority of people, but still, I remember Dean telling me, because at one point he explained to me the concept of playing the political games, because I kept saying that, like, I'm terrible at politics, and he said, like, I'm going to explain to you the difference between not being good at politics or refusing to play the game. So he looked at me and said, which category do you think you fall in? So he said, like, I'm going to explain to you, like, you can be very good at it, but you choose not to play the game. This is not the same thing as not being good, than choosing not to play the games. So it kind of, made an impact on me later on as I get more responsibility and having to play the game within the enterprise of the organization. So it always reminded me that there's a choice. You can choose to play the game, or you can refuse to play the game, but it doesn't mean that you're not good at dealing with politics within any organization. I think you have to have that in any organization, because it's normal, but you need to be able to manage it, so that to keep it at a certain level that is, healthy for the organization. So that's one of the mentors that I had, and the second one that I had is, it made a huge impact on me, because he went through some tough time personally, and unfortunately he went on stress leave. He came back, still got back to his position, and he worked his way through to become like a senior vice president. And I was telling myself, and I said, where does he find the strength to go through all that? And how did he learn from all that and come back and manage to keep growing in his career? And when it was my turn, unfortunately, because you look at people around you and you say, I will never let that happen to me. But sometimes things happen and you don't realize when it's right there. And he told me, he said, I'm glad that you realize early enough in the process to take care of yourself so that you don't get to the final stage, because he said it would have taken you much longer to get back on your feet. So he helped me through that whole process and realizing what have I learned from the process and what kind of signals that, unfortunately, some people like me, you learn it through experience, because people can tell you all you want, but you should look out for these signals and not go there. Unfortunately, I had to go down the path to learn the hard way, and I learned it. So now I take care of myself, and that's one of the other reasons why I want to help people out there, because regardless of the type of nonprofit organization that company like yourself, through this type of setup of meeting vendors and being able to give back and help people avoid that pain that I went through, then so be it. I'm all in. Like you said, it's 45 minutes of my time once a month, maybe 2 a month if I can. It's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing. It really isn't. And it's I think to reach intelligent answers, you sometimes have to ask really stupid questions. And I've always had this belief that if you never do anything differently, you'll reduce your chances of having what I like to call lucky accidents. And often we look at I tell people this all the time. If you want to go and meet somebody new, just go and look at your existing contact base on LinkedIn and go and pick somebody that you haven't spoken to for a year, because there'll be a lucky accident in there waiting to happen because you haven't spoken to them for a year. So much things have passed through their life and your life, and when you come together and have a conversation, there's a lucky accident in there sometimes. And I think that almost is the foundation for serendipity. It's where good things, you feel good about those little things that when you bump across them, or you feel like you've had that lucky accident. So I'm a big fan of what you just said there, because having, if you're a CFO, or if you're head of HR, your job today is going to be disrupted by technology, regardless. Absolutely. It is. I mean, it really is. And so you've got to solve problems today using technology. So it's kind of closed-minded to say, I don't want to meet with those vendors. Your job is actually to meet with those vendors, to stay up to date, to be relevant and transform your business, because that's what your competitors are doing. So it's really, I think, taking the mindset away from, oh, I'm too important for that meeting. It's actually really, you have a lucky accident by having one of those conversations. And we had one the other day. There's a HR tech company called Paradox AI, and they just basically take all of the time and effort it takes to onboard and hire people in the retail space. And this is really important because in Australia, there is 50,000 open positions in retail, and they can't fill them because the kids and the Gen Zs, or Gen Zs as they're called, the Gen Zs, they've got no attention span to fill out a form, and they've got no attention span to sit there and put all this stuff in. So what Paradox does is it takes all that complexity away and smooths the process for onboarding retail staff and hiring retail staff at that generation. And it's helping reduce the cost and the time it takes to do that. Why would any company in this economic climate not want to look at that? Everyone's going to be struggling with costs and balance sheets and increasing your EBITDA and stuff. But that's one thing that a HR person has an opportunity to have a lucky accident. You just never know what you're going to meet when you have one of these conversations. So I always say, if you've got the opportunity to meet with somebody that you wouldn't necessarily normally meet with, have the conversation. You just never know. Be open to it. It's almost like we do it on the street, don't we? When we're walking down the street, we're happy to have a conversation with a little old lady. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's sometimes I think when you create a brand new category, because that's what Meat Magic is, a brand new category. Is there's nothing exists like it. So you've got to sort of change hearts and minds and behaviors, and that sometimes takes time. But
it's the same thing when you get to travel, Carl. For me, having the opportunity to sit next to somebody that you telling yourself is that I'm probably never gonna talk to this person again, especially when they initiate the conversation, because I'm not the type that, you know, I'm a very introverted person. So when somebody initiate the conversation, like, I mean, at the beginning is always that, you know, moment of not feeling comfortable because you said, oh, you know, like, do you really need to talk to the person? But then you realize when they start sharing the story, and then you know, you learn stuff that you probably never learn if you decide not to talk to that person. So for me, it's the same thing, like meeting with a vendor, to your point. And I keep telling my team, and I said, whether we want it or not, the expectations are there. I'm probably part of the generation that saw a little bit of, you know, those things, those memo that you put in the departmental envelope that you sent out.
Yeah.
And then you know that people are not going to respond to you for a few days, or even if they do, by the time they put it in the envelope and send it back to you, it might take a week before you have a response, and you don't freak out over it. Today, you send an email and you're expecting people to answer. I said, like, they have other things to do. It's not like they're sitting in front of a computer and expect you to see their email coming in and then, you know, give them the response right away. So whether we want it or not, technologies is there, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So for me, any opportunity to meet with a tech vendor and your company is giving that opportunity, so be it. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to learn new stuff. It's going to help me do a better job, helping my team, and you know, be more knowledge, because you in technologies and technologies, whether you want it or not, it's there and it's evolving at the speed of light, and you have to learn how to deal with it. So.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, we hear stories from executives and decision makers who use the knowledge they gain from those meetings to actually attract and retain staff. So it's actually becoming there's also a big mental health side to it as well, because we've heard also that a lot of execs feel good when they've had one of the meetings and they've sent the money to a charity, because it's a dopamine hit, right? Who doesn't want to feel good when they go to work? Or who doesn't want to feel good after they've had a meeting? It's kind of, so we're trying to reframe what a meeting feels like, because it can feel good. But the interesting part of attracting and retaining talent, I think it was Ian Robinson, who is the CIO of the water authority here, so the people that run the water in New South Wales. And he said to me that every time he has one of the meetings, he learns so much that he takes it back and he inspires his team. And then when he's having interviews with people that want to come and work for the water company, he talks about the technologies and, you know, where it potentially could go, and that's attracting them in. So it's actually solving a really critical business problem as well, not just for the sake of having a conversation. It's actually really doing some good internally, both from a standpoint of feeling committed at work, but because when you feel good, you're actually more productive. And when you're more productive, you're actually a better leader. And when you're a better leader, you're a better person to be around. And then when you're a better person to be around, you're a better person at home, and you're a better parent. And there's so much goodness that comes out of feeling good. And so I want to try and make sure that it's a hard thing to try and convince people to do. But once they do it, it's like, why haven't I done this before? And that's I think it's just human nature. It really is. It's like people, they don't know what they want until somebody shows them, and it's kind of interesting when you go down this path of being a startup that's trying to do something different. But it's exciting. It's inspiring. I'm very grateful that we've got lots of amazing clients who love the connections, and I think 86% of the decision makers that came here when we started it are still with us today, and that tells you that they're getting value from those connections. So, Bernard, I've waffled on too much. I just want to say thank you for joining me and for coming on this. Before we go, I want to ask you some, I think they call them Socratic questions. So I think that's the right word. I left school at 15, but I remember some things. So there's like 3 questions, and you got the first thing that comes into your head. One of them was going to say, I think one of the questions was say something in an Asian language. I'm not going to bother asking you that one because that's too easy. So the first one is, what's a nickname one of your first girlfriends used to call you?
Burn.
What about, do you respect Kanye West?
Sorry, what was the question I was trying to?
Do you respect Kanye West?
I changed my answer. I was called Grasshopper. That was my first name.
That reminds me of Karate Kid.
So your second question, Carl, was?
Do you respect Kanye West?
You know what? I have no clue who we're talking about, so I'm not going to lie to you.
Wow, that's really unique. I've never heard that one before. Kanye was Kim Kardashian's husband a while ago. Anyway, and the final one. Let's have a think about this one. Let's have a think. What was the last song that you sang out loud?
That's a good question. You know what? I actually sang it this week, but I have to remember which one it was. I'm really bad with names, but I did sing something this week. Just give me 1 sec. I'm going to tell you which one it is. I have it right here. So
it's funny how music makes us happy, isn't it?
It is. It's actually, I think people should sing more.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we're not doing it, but you know, I always laugh when people say, "Oh, somebody's singing in the shower," and I said that it's good for you. You should sing more. It's "Run With Me" from the name of the song is "Run With Me," and it's from Callum Scott.
Run With Me. Who's Scott?
Callum Scott.
Okay, I'm gonna have a look at this.
If you're down and it can't get
I've never heard it. Is it Canadian?
It's and the lyrics are great. I love it. So again, and it's easy to sing. You know, again, it just so it's one of those things. So it's my latest one. I'm not pretending to be as good as Callum Scott, but it's one of those songs that I love to sing. So.
Bernard, you're an amazing human being. I just want to say thank you for supporting us and for coming on and for being so open and vulnerable with your story. It's it's inspiring to see where people can go. And anyone that's got a path similar to yours should take note from it, because we don't realize until we get to a certain age in life that all the things that have happened to us when we were younger have actually helped us. So I know you have, and I know I definitely have. So I just want to say thank you for being a supporter.
I want to thank you for the opportunity, Carl. And one last thing, I mean, whoever is listening to the podcast, I'm really encouraging people to try it at least once. And like you said, if it's going to make you feel good, then you're going to do it again. We don't have to convince you, but try it at least once. And if anything else, you're going to learn something. Or if you don't, you would help somebody out there.
There's nothing to lose. Yep. There's absolutely nothing. It's a triple win. It's a win-win-win, I think, as they used to say. Yeah. Wait, you enjoy it? Is it your Friday or Saturday? Is it Friday afternoon where you are?
It's Friday end of day for us, so the beginning of weekend. So yeah.
Well, it's 8 a.m. almost here in Sydney. I'm going to go and take the dog for a walk, and I just want to say thank you. Have a great weekend, and I'm going to drop you an email with a link to a voucher so you can go and give it to a charity. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. That's a beautiful story.
Thanks, Carl.
Take care, mate. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Bye, everyone.
You too.